in the midst of all the turmoil that that we are experiencing right now, the turbulence that we're experiencing. The world is turning, but God is faithful and He has never changed. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And so we bank on Him, and we just come to understand more and more clearly that our lives are in God's hands. The world is in God's hands. We used to think that the kings, the leaders, those people who have power and position have control over our lives, but actually even then, because they are given power and authority, right? But even then, God is sovereign, and without His permission, nothing happens. So it's wonderful that we have good God, don't we? And who loves us dearly. So we're gonna learn the last few important things about coaching today, and we're going to come to close with the quarter. So let's start with the word of prayer, shall we? Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for your faithfulness and your goodness. Lord, the sun rises and the sun sets, and the seasons change, and we are able to start and finish the quarter because of your grace, because of your faithfulness. Father God, help us know you more and help us become more like you. We invite you, Holy Spirit, even in this last session, Father God, as we are coming to close. I know that you have been coaching us, teaching us, and guiding us, Lord God, throughout the quarter, and help us be equipped, even in a basic sense, to be able to reach out to other people, Lord God, setting the goals together with our clients, and discussing the feasible options to get to the goals, to reach the goals, and celebrate even the minor successes, and each step of the way, just assessing ourselves, how far we have come. And Father God, maybe instill in us your patience and your endurance, your discipline and your faithfulness, so that whenever we move forward, we will be motivated to move forward, Father, based on your faithfulness, Lord God, even if it's 2 steps forward and 1 step backward. And Lord, as much as the summer can be busy and can be hot and distracting, Father, we ask you that you will be our focus, that you will continue to bless our students in this class, Lord, and that your word will be instilled in our hearts. That'll be louder, that sound that will be louder than any other sounds, like the media or whatever our friends are telling us, or what the world is telling us, Father God. That we will live according to your word, and not according to the world's principles, or how the world operates, or even that we will not live by our flesh. Father God, you know us, and you know our needs, and you care deeply about us. And so we trust you, we thank you, and help us walk in awareness of your presence at all times. We thank you in Christ, and we pray. Amen. So last time we talked about the 10 Commandments. These are the things that God taught them, in the wilderness, and God came down on Mount Sinai, and God specifically called Moses instead of everyone, and he actually kept everyone from coming up, lest their lives will be threatened, because he's holy, and not everyone is able to approach him. But Moses was given this special permission, and what a privilege that we have today, that we can approach God because of Jesus Christ and his sacrifice on the cross, that we're able to individually appear before him and not have to die, right? The 10 Commandments were given so that we'll know God's heart is to love God and love our neighbors, right? And so we're continuing on with Exodus chapter 21. So these are the laws you have to set before them. So this is God speaking to Moses, and Moses was like God to the people because he was the mouthpiece for God, and he had the authority that was given by God. So this is regarding Hebrew servants. If you buy a Hebrew servant, he is to serve you for 6 years, but in the 7th year he shall go free without paying anything. So you obviously, in those years, once again, God never intended that there should be, lords and slaves or servants. God created everyone equal, but and He never intended one man to multiple wives, like that was practiced in the Hebraic system and Jewish system, but because God gave people free will and He's so patient. He doesn't wipe out everyone for living in a lifestyle that he does not desire, but he's willing to still work with the system and still bring the justice. Still, as much as you are doing what you're doing, at least in that context, be just and merciful. That's how he's doing. So, regarding the Hebrew servants, God cares about servants, right? Our God is not, the one true God, Yahweh, is not a God who looks at, whose eyes are, searching for those people who are gifted and powerful and who can throw out a spectacular show for Him. Rather, His eyes are on those people who are lowly, who are in need, who doesn't have anything, but because they're God's children, equally as equal, as much as other people, like the lords that have bought the servants. And so, and we can see that He is a merciful God, God of justice and mercy, right? And so He lays out even the detail laws about servants. Isn't it interesting? The law about servants, but at the same time, it's a law about the Sabbath. So we're going to talk about both of them. How we are to treat servants. Servants usually don't have power. They were like properties, right? Property bought. Don't have the rights. And they usually are in need. They cannot live without their Lord's provision, their owner's provision. Right? And number 2 is how we're supposed to keep Sabbath. Okay, so this is chapter 21 of Exodus. If you buy a Hebrew servant, he is to serve you for 6 years, but in the 7th year he shall go free without paying anything. If he comes alone, he is to go free alone, but if he has a wife when he comes, she is to go with him. If his master gives him a wife, and she bears him sons or daughters, the woman and her children shall belong to her master, and only the man shall go free. So this will be a really sad situation, right? If he's set free and he's a free man. Oftentimes, I don't know how often, but sometimes, a regular family experience like financial hardship. At that time, the children were considered as property as well. Wives were considered as property, and so they would actually sell their sons and daughters as servants to work in other people's other families. Then after so many years of working there as servants, they can actually, I guess, pay back whatever they needed to pay for, and then they are free. But then, say this person became a servant at a young age, and he's given a wife, and she happens to be a servant there too, right? And so they got married, not knowing what was gonna happen in the future, right? And so, or maybe they knew, well, we don't know, and they had children. Then what's gonna happen when the servant is free and the wife is not free? The children also belong to the master, right? Because the master actually provided the wife, to the servant. So in that case, the wife and children, because the master had provided the wife to him, so they still belong to the master, right? So then the servant has to go himself. And if he doesn't want that, then we read briefly that he's supposed to, or for whatever other reasons, like I don't want to leave, like I like my master, then this person needs to go with the master to a doorpost, and pierce the ear, so that that'll signify that he's a bond servant, that he doesn't want to leave but want to stay forever with the master, right? And 6 years, so making work for 6 years, and then he still has debts. He still has financial obligations, but after 6 years, set him free. Why? This has to do with Sabbath. What is Sabbath? It's the day of rest. I would say this is the year of Lord's favor. Well, year of Lord's favor is another thing, but anyway, what is Sabbath? It's a day of rest. And then there's sabbatical, right? Year of rest. And then there's year of Lord's favor. That's 49th year, right? After 49 years, I believe that it's the 50th year that you need to set, just free your servant and also let your land rest. If you own anybody's land, because of the financial need, they might have sold their own property of the land to another person, right? Then after 49 years, actually give it back to them. So then if the person is not living, I guess it goes to the descendant then, right? So why do we do this? Well, it goes back to Adam and Eve. So God created creation. It goes back to the creation story, right? God created the light, and it was separated from darkness, right? He set the sky, and the water. He brought sun, moon, and stars um, and vegetation, you know, animals, birds and fish, and then he created the human beings on day 6, right? Human beings on day 6, which is Adam and Eve. And what did he do day 7? Right after he created the human beings. He rested and then made the day holy. Holy means set apart, right? So God rested on day 7 and made the day set apart. So God was not tired. He's never tired. On day 7, he's not tired. He's not tired today. He doesn't get tired of us. And if he does, wow, we will be in great trouble, and the universe probably doesn't exist anymore right now. Because if he needs rest, then that means the world becomes chaotic, and nobody's out there to fine-tune the universe, because the universe is constantly expanding, and also it's becoming more and more disorganized as time passes. That's a universal law, and somebody's fine-tuning in order for us to see the exact, like the precision of the distance from the sun, Earth and any other stars, the distance between sun and the stars, distance between the solar system and galaxies, also the gravity, and if there's like a slightest mistake, say 0.01 millimeter, it's very insignificant. But if it's slightly off, like by the time, because we are many light years away from the sun and from the galaxies, if there's a slightest mistake in terms of the how many degrees, like if each star and our planet don't stay in exact orbit, then they'll all come to be destroyed. Like we can't exist if the gravity is slightly off. Then that means all the particles, all the cells, they cannot exist. They cannot be put together. We have a shape, and the chairs and the computer have a shape because of the gravity. And if there's a slight mistake with the gravity, then we don't exist. We cannot exist. So somebody is fine-tuning every day, every single moment, and that is God. And he's not tired. He's not resting. When he says resting, it's not because he's tired, but just enjoying, sitting back and enjoying. While he's sitting back, still watching over, right? Sit back and enjoy his creation. And he made it holy because that's fullness of his presence. Like, what is Sabbath? It's actively entering into God's presence. And there we find rest. Because we might be physically resting, but not be truly resting if we don't have peace, right? So in him is shalom, peace. In him we find shalom, peace. Shalom means wholeness, right? We find our wholeness in Him. We're not whole without Him. The more we are distant from Him, the more we are not in Him, or we're not with Him, the less whole we are. And so, wholeness he just didn't engage in the activities that he was engaging for 6 days, which is great and which is awesome. But he has a day he doesn't have to engage in active creation, but just to be himself, to allow that day that is especially set aside for himself and for the sake of human beings. Adam and Eve, when they were created, he didn't say, all right, now that I breathe into your nostril, get up and start working. There's plenty of work to do in the garden. No, he didn't say that. He said, enter into my presence. Rest. There's shalom, peace. It's not so much of absence of activity, but rather it's just being with Him. So I wonder if you've ever experienced anything like someone who is so loving and so peaceful, and it's harder to find these days because the enemy is doing all kinds of tricks in order to make us busy, right? But when we imagine yourself, the person that you believe to be the most peaceful and most loving, you might have had that experience in your past. Just sitting at a beach, like I don't know what you like. You might love a mountain, you might love a beach, or maybe it's just camping out on a mountain or something like that. You're in a very peaceful place, and you are with this person that loves you dearly, and you're just sitting there, and you're not necessarily talking to each other, but just enjoying watching the nature or whatever you like, and you don't have to talk, but somehow your hearts are connected, and you kind of feel the same, and you're just completely satisfied. If you say a word, perhaps that's going to break the atmosphere, like break the perfect moment. Have you ever felt that? That kind of, like, my imagination of Sabbath is like that. God is there, Adam and Eve, they just woke up and they're like, whoa, God, this is beautiful. You created this for us. And wow, this is flesh of my flesh, bone of my bones. And she is so beautiful, not on the outward sense. I'm sure Eve was pretty, she was beautiful on the outside too, but then just because it's an untainted version of the human beings, can't be better than that. Inside out, just completely pure and beautiful, right? And so you're just absolutely fascinated by what God has created, and you're appreciating, and you're just so satisfied. That kind of rest. Another example is one of my friends got married several years ago. She had to wait for her first child for 9 or 10 years. Yeah, let's say 10 years. And so her son is even more special than any other regular child, right? Parents, normally, whatever the normality is, normally would feel the exceeding joy, like, wow, this is breathtaking, like, a baby is born, like this is a miracle, right? Oh, he's got 5 fingers. Oh, she's got, she has beautiful eyes or whatever, right? And parents are absolutely just fascinated by the baby, aside from the fact that the mother is like, I'm about to die, right? But my friend was holding her baby, so she visited me when her son was 5 months old, and he just started, his dabbling and his contact, making eye contact. He is able to express his emotions, and so it's a very, very cute stage, right? And she was holding him while she was talking to me, and then she stopped talking, and there was a silence, and I was like, I wonder what she's doing. And she was looking at her baby, and they were making eye contact for several seconds, and she just kept looking at him while she was talking to me. She said, I've never seen him such so content. Like, he's completely content. He doesn't make any noise. He doesn't. He's not in need. He's not hungry. He's not wet. He's just so satisfied in his mother's arms. So that kind of feeling has to do with Sabbath. And so Adam and Eve were completely satisfied, and they were in awe, and they're just enjoying the creation with God, and their hearts are connected. So Sabbath is pretty important to God. We oftentimes, I think, miss it. Satan robs the Sabbath. That's another reason he's keeping us busy. But so it's a day of rest, day of shalom. And we actually talked about it, last week, last session, how Sabbath is supposed to be kept, right? God specified everything. He is such a thoughtful, caring God. I don't think his OCD. I don't think so. No, he's very much relaxed, and in fact, when I was OCD, God prophetically spoke to me. You have so many lines. Just erase them. You have so many rules. Like, let's get rid of them. Just be with me. And so I have been learning, and so he's not OCD, but he's so detail giving for our sake. Like, to a little child who doesn't understand the adult language, you try to, use the language that they understand in order to communicate with them, and repeat the important instructions, and provide so much detail. He said, number 1, do this. Number 2, you do this. You have to teach him step by step, right? And God is doing exactly that. Oh, you want to make something? Oh, you want to do some crafts? Okay, this is how you do it. Here's a model. And if you want to start from scratch, okay, here's 2 inches right here, 3 inches right there. Like, he's teaching all that, and so that's why he was so much in detail about the temple, about the tabernacle first, and then the temple. Aside from the fact that there is a meaning to even the measurements and the colors, the fabrics, the materials, right? So then Sabbath is very important to him because from the beginning, that is the culmination. Sabbath is the culmination. Of his creation. it's not the highest mountain like Mount Everest, or it's not that. The combination of his creation, of course, Adam and Eve, but the ultimate celebration, like what is the highlight at Sabbath? As much as it was so spectacular to, when he said, "Let there be light," whoa! First, he brought order to the chaos, right? That's like mind blowing in itself. But even more so with Sabbath, that is even more beautiful and more spectacular in God's eyes than creation itself. So when are we going to experience the true Sabbath? That is going to be the last day when Jesus returns and gathers his bride and bring them up to the wedding banquet of the Lamb. That is going to be the complete shalom, complete Sabbath, the culmination. And because while we are living on this earth, we are practicing and experiencing a minor version, like an imperfect foretaste version of heaven. And so while we are keeping Sabbath holy, set apart, entering into his presence, resting with him and being satisfied with him, appreciating him and his creation, that is like a weekly practice. Okay, this is what we're going to be doing in heaven. Not to say heaven doesn't have any work. There's enjoyment. Heaven's work is like play. When we were little, I wonder if you've had a play date with all kinds of toys. And I really enjoyed playing with my neighbor's kid with kitchen. Toy kitchen materials. Like we brought the toy set outside. She had her own set. I had my own set, and we sometimes swapped and borrowed from each other, and we pretended to be moms, right? And we were cooking. We were making cakes, with the dirt and with some water, and sometimes we dug a hole with a scoop and things like that. So. Pretending to be like a watermelon or ice cream or something like that. She and I played a lot, and while we were playing, it was so enjoyable. I remember there was one time I was so into that play. I don't know what about that, but it was so fun that I spent the entire afternoon, and even my friend said, I have to go up, and are you gonna stay? I'm like, I'm staying. And she was like, okay, goodbye. And she packed up her belongings and she just went up. And then I was left alone. It was so interesting. That day I didn't know what I was doing, but it was just so interesting. By the time I came to realize, the sun is setting, and so at that time they didn't have the laws that an adult has to be supervising. My mom was occasionally checking on me, outside the window, but we didn't need adult supervision. And so I started gathering things up, and then I went up, and I really badly had to go to the bathroom. I was like, I couldn't hold it anymore. So that kind of play, that kind of work. So for kids, that's work, right? As a kid, what is your responsibility before you go to school, right? Before you go to school, if you're not a school-age child, like you're younger, what are you supposed to do? You are supposed to follow your parents wherever they go, and oftentimes there are treats, right? And if you bring your, and then what do? You're supposed to play, and that's your work, that's your duty. Go ahead and play. When we're playing, our parents are satisfied. And my older brother and older sister were, we have an age gap, so they came back from school kind of later, and they had to work on their homework, and they didn't have time to play with me. But finally, if they had time, then we would watch TV together, or draw something together, or like joke around, or do something together, right? That was an enjoyable time. That's what a child is supposed to do. That's work. So when we go to heaven, our work is going to be, I'm imagining, that's something kind of similar to what God gave Adam and Eve to do. Tend the garden, maybe they learn to sow the seed and, make the trees grow and vegetation grow. But it's not hard work. The hard work came as a result of a curse. By the sweat of your brow, you would reap the harvest. That was one of the curses, and it was one of the punishments, right? And so it's not going to be painful labor, backbreaking labor like you have to do when you're farming on this earth. It's going to be like, okay, I'll go out, and because the heaven is so huge, you can't run out of space, no matter what you do, right? So you sow your seeds, like, okay, here, I wonder if you've watched like animation when you were growing up, like you're scattering seeds and they become trees. So work is like play in heaven. Work and play are the same. Creative play. Creative play. And so then, while we're walking on this earth, we are practicing that as children of God. So if you don't know Jesus as your Lord and Savior, my prayer and hope is that you come to know Him and come to understand Him at a deeper level. So because we are practicing heaven, God gave this command: keep the Sabbath holy, right? One of the things is don't engage in work, because I want you to enjoy me. I want you to trust me. So Sabbath is trusting God as well. So even in the wilderness, what happened? Gather your manna for 6 days. So each day you're supposed to gather so many omer, for each person, like the exact amount that you need for just one day, and don't gather anymore. And if you have leftover, there were like maggots and other things. Like it went bad. The next day they would gather new manna, right? On day 6, what they were supposed to do, because day 7, God wanted them to rest from the activity of gathering manna, even that. So on 6th day, you gather twice as much. And then on 7th day, it's not going to go bad because of my principles, because of my law. And that's how God operates. When God speaks, that's going to happen. When God sets certain kind of principle, it's going to be there. And so we'd better know the laws, we'd better know the principles. Otherwise, whatever people say, people of power, people of influence, say on this earth, like there's no God. No, that's not the right principle. Well, but still that's there. Still God's powerful. We're losing if we don't know His laws, if we don't follow His law, we don't live according to His laws, right? And that's part of what I'm doing for you, what I have been doing for you, is to know the laws, because nobody is outside God's laws. Because even for example, this law applies to the foreigners as well, right? Foreigners, those people who don't know God. So we're losing a great deal if we don't know God's law or do not live according to His law. So then on day 7, because you gathered manna twice as much, you probably have enough, and you don't have to go out to gather. Like, you don't have to strive to get what you need on the day of Sabbath. You can rest, you can trust, and you can rest in me. So if you don't trust God, we will not be able to rest, right? Satan tries to. Why is it trying so hard to make people work on Sabbath? I remember 20 years ago, America was not as busy. 20 years ago, basically I saw the restaurants close, no business open during Thanksgiving, Christmas. There was hardly anybody on college campus. There was nowhere to go. Basically, you had nowhere to go, but just had to stay home. As singles, living on campus, that was a disadvantage, unless you're invited by someone else. So like, there were some thoughtful professors provided who opened their homes for holidays. But today, there are so many businesses that are open throughout Christmas. Do more business throughout Christmas. Sundays, right? Decades ago, Sundays, everything was closed, right? That gradually changed. And some people might say, well, United States has been a Christian country and now it's changing, and that's why. Well, partially yes, but if you really have a critical eye, you'll be able to discover this. Money has become more important. So capitalism, capitalist ideology has become God instead of one true God. Money has become the God of the United States, very unfortunately. And it's interesting that money has become God, but people don't necessarily have a higher quality of life. Money has become God. For some reason, people are busier. Money has become God, but for some reason, now both husband and wife have to work. Money has become God, but for some reason, we have to work overtime. It's very interesting. And I'm not saying communism is great and capitalism is bad. I'm not saying that. Any ideology has a problem, and look how the North Korean are doing. How many people are being killed, and how many kids are being starved to death. How people are treated lesser than property. It's not even property. You can just step all over them like a rag and don't feel anything about that. But whatever we put before God, it could be any ideology, it could be any perspective, it could be any isms that take the place of God. There will be deadly side effects, short-term and long-term. And so what we're experiencing is money has become God, and people are not happy. And we have more problems in the society. And so we need to think about where we started to drift away. And so what I'm saying is we're not keeping Sabbath anymore as a country, right? And I'm not saying legalistically keep Sabbath, like don't help anybody on Sabbath, Jesus ministered to people all the time, intentionally breaking Sabbath because he wanted to know, wanted people to know that in him, shalom is found. In me, you're gonna find wholeness. And for the sake of wholeness and for the sake of love, I'm gonna break my own law of not working on Sabbath, but I'm gonna work in order to set you free, in order to heal you. So I'm not saying like legalistically keep Sabbath, but keep the spirit, honor it, right? How are you supposed to honor it? Maybe for each person it might look a little bit different. Letting go of our idols, letting down our concerns and worries, especially about how to live, and actively entering into his presence, like whatever it takes for you to live that kind of day. That's going to be your Sabbath practice. And it's a battle. It has been a battle for me as well. And the enemy really wants to get rid of Sabbath, and he has been pretty successful in North America and Korea, South Korea, and many of the developed countries. Now, Satan actually took away God and gave money. And here's your God. Like, this is the most powerful thing. Worship the money. And so, why did it try so hard to trick people to work on Sabbath so that they will not be able to keep it holy and they will not be able to rest? Because Sabbath is very important to God. He created it at the beginning of the universe, and he commanded us to keep it. And that's part of honoring God, how to love God, right? So get rid of the means to love God. And then number 4, it's a celebration of heaven on the earth, like what is going to happen in the end, joining the wedding banquet of the Lamb, and just living in God's complete shalom for eternity. And he's trying to get rid of that picture. No, you don't need heaven. Just work for money. Just be enslaved to money. And it'll be easier for me to then drag you to the eternal lake of fire along with me. So he has specific targets. He targets marriage because marriage, once again, we talk about this, spiritually and symbolically represent the relationship between God and us. He tries to destroy Sabbath because that is the culmination of his time. That is the day set apart in order to love him, and if we keep the Sabbath, it's good for us. If we live according to God's will, God's laws, it's beneficial to us. And so he's trying to get rid of Sabbath because that's important to God. And he's trying to distract us from worshiping God because then he can, because we become powerless spiritually. And it's easier for him to drag us down to his destination, which is hell. So he has specific targets, and we have to keep in mind where he's targeting. And we need to defend. It's a battle. It's a spiritual battle going on. We need to make our commitments and really stand with the commitment. And the year of rest, sabbatical. So for 6 years, your servant will work. But then on 7th year, because it's a sabbatical, once again, it has that spiritual meaning. It's very important. So set them free. And then if they have remaining balance or whatever, you set them free. Because God sets the captives free. And whoever is, even back then, there were financial bondages. Set them free from financial bondages. Now, what about the year of Lord's favor? So every 7th year, you give everything a rest. Don't plant anything on the land that has been worked on for 60 years, that you've been gathering harvest. Let them just rest. Like whatever crops up and whatever grows, like don't worry about them. Just leave them. Give your land a rest. And set your servants free on the 50th year, which is the year of Lord's favor, which is an extension of, which is the like a 45th version of the Sabbath, right? And if anybody owes you property, like a land, give it back to them, back to the original owner. So this is how we are to celebrate Sabbath, honor Sabbath, and keep it holy, and in remembrance, to remind ourselves that we belong to God, that we're God's people. If his master gives him a wife, and she bears him sons or daughters, the woman and her children shall belong to her master, and only the man shall go free. But if the servant declares, I love my master and my wife and children, and do not want to go free, then his master must take him before the judges. So make it legal that this servant is now a bondservant. He shall take him to the door or the doorpost and pierce his ear with an awl. Then he will be his servant for life. If a man sells his daughter as a servant, she is not to go free as male servants do. If she does not please the master, why is it? So oftentimes the female slaves or servants were sold as a wife type of figure, right? If she does not please the master who has selected her for himself, he must let her be redeemed. He has no right to sell her to foreigners because he has broken faith with her. So this is a conjugal relationship, right? If he selects her for his son, he must grant her the rights of a daughter. If he marries another woman, he must not deprive the first one of her food, clothing, and marital rights. If he does not provide her with, so even for the servant, as much as they were treated as properties, give them human rights, right? That is God's idea. If he does not provide her with these three things, she is to go free without any payment of money. So we talked about the personal injuries and animals, eye for an eye, ear for ear, but it's only because human beings are so evil that they were not even compensating, or they were not restituting for the loss or the amount that was rightly due. So that's why God had to come up with this. But the spirit behind it is, no, actually don't do that, but actually love your enemy, like feed the hungry, take good care of your neighbors, and especially take good care of orphans and widows, right? Whoever steals an ox or a sheep or slaughters it or sells it must pay back 5 head of cattle for the ox and 4 sheep for the sheep. So stealing has consequences, right? God really does not want that to happen. If a thief is caught breaking in at night and is struck a fatal blow, the defender is not guilty of the bloodshed. But if it happens after sunrise, the defender is guilty of bloodshed. So at nighttime, God is considering that people they did not have like electricity back then, and they would not be able to see each other very well. Anyone who steals must certainly make restitution, but if they have nothing, they must be sold to pay for their theft. If the stolen animal is found alive in their possession, whether ox or donkey or sheep, they must pay back double. If anyone grazes their livestock in a field or vineyard and lets them stray, and they graze in someone else's field, the offender must make restitution from the best of their own field or vineyard. So never intentionally do this, and keep watch over your livestock, because you want to keep them from damaging your neighbor's property. If a fire breaks out and spreads into thorn bushes so that it burns shocks of grain, or standing grain, or the whole field, the one who started the fire must make restitution. If anyone gives a neighbor silver or goods for safekeeping, and they're stolen from the neighbor's house, the thief, if caught, must pay back double. But if the thief is not found, the owner of the house must appear before the judges, and they must determine whether the owner of the house has laid hands on the other person's property. In all cases of illegal possession of an ox, a donkey, a sheep, a garment, or any other lost property about which someone says, "This is mine," both parties are to bring their cases before the judges. The one whom the judges declare guilty must pay back double to the other. If anyone gives a donkey, an ox, a sheep, or any other animal to their neighbor for safekeeping, and it dies or is injured and is taken away while no one is looking, the issue between them will be settled by the taking of an oath before the Lord that the neighbor did not lay hands on the other person's property. The owner is to accept this, and no restitution is required. But if the animal was stolen from the neighbor, restitution must be made to the owner. If it was torn to pieces by a wild animal, the neighbor shall bring in the remains as evidence and shall not be required to pay for the torn animal. If anyone borrows an animal from their neighbor and is injured or dies while the owner is not present, they must make restitution. But if the owner is with the animal, the borrower will not have to pay. If the animal was hired, the money paid for the hire covers the loss. And there are social responsibilities, right? So why did God have to, say so much in detail? It's not because he's so concerned about nitty-gritty, but he cares about us, and the human beings have gone astray so much that they don't care about what kind of damage that they incurred in other people's lives. So he had to be in detail and specific. And if a man seduces a virgin who is not pledged to be married and sleeps with her, he must pay the bride price, and she shall be his wife. So we're talking about a virgin that probably she's very young, because back in those days people were married in their teen years, right? And so get married if you actually took her body. If her father absolutely refuses to give her to him, he must still pay the bride price for virgins. So you may not get her as your wife, but you still have to pay the bride price. Do not allow a sorceress to live. Sorceress, people who do magic, people who do things, it's by the power of the evil. It's by the power of idols other than God. So don't let them live. Anyone who has sexual relations with an animal is to be put to death. I've been hearing more and more in the past few years that this is coming back. In part of Europe and part of other parts of the world, perhaps in Europe the most, but even in the United States, even in North America. And there's a reason, because this is against the creation order, and obviously we did not come from animals, we did not come from monkeys, and therefore we're not supposed to enter into an intimate spiritual act with them. Whoever sacrifices to any god other than the Lord must be destroyed. Do not mistreat or oppress a foreigner, for you were foreigners in Egypt. Yeah, so there were a number of reasons why the Israelites were living in Egypt in slavery. But nevertheless, God still wanted to utilize that time in order to teach them. One of the things, they cannot forget their time in Egypt as slaves. Don't mistreat foreigners because you were foreigners in Egypt. Do not take advantage of the widow or the fatherless. If you do, and they cry out to me, I will certainly hear their cry. My anger will be aroused, and I will kill you with the sword. Your wives will become widows, and your children fatherless. If you lend money to one of my people among you who is needy, do not treat it like a business deal. Charge no interest. If you take your neighbor's cloak as a pledge, return it by sunset. Because their cloak is the only covering your neighbor has. What else can they sleep in? When they cry out to me, I will hear, for I am compassionate. Do not blaspheme God or curse the rulers of your people. Do not hold back offerings from your granaries or your vats. You must give me the firstborn of your sons. So we talked about this before, that it's not a human sacrifice, but rather for your sons, bring redemption, right? There was like silver or other means to redeem the sons. Do the same with your cattle and your sheep. Let them stay with their mothers for 7 days. Even for animals, God cares about animals. Although there are animal sacrifices, not because God does not care, but because there needed to be a sacrifice of blood in order to point toward Christ, the ultimate sacrifice, and his sacrifice on the cross. And the animals, although God created each one of them, and each one of them is lovely in his eyes, but he had to sacrifice animals in a very it could look really cruel, and for the human beings to actually watch that this was supposed to happen to me as a result of my sin, but the animal is being sacrificed. God was teaching them a visual lesson. So then let the baby animals stay with their mothers for 7 days, but give them to me on the 8th day. You are to be my holy people, so do not eat the meat of an animal torn by wild beasts. Throw it to the dogs. Laws of justice and mercy. Do not spread false reports. Do not help a guilty person by being a malicious witness. Do not follow the crowd in doing wrong. So, it's very easy to follow the crowd unless you have keen discernment. If you have been practicing justice and mercy in your life, it'll be much easier for you to not follow the crowd and not have to go with the peer pressure. But if anyone is not in the Lord, and anyone who has drifted away, they'll be more easily dragged into the crowd to do the same. When you give testimony in a lawsuit, do not pervert justice by siding with the crowd, and do not show favoritism to a poor person in a lawsuit. So don't oversteer to the other side either. So whether powerful or powerless, like, don't show favoritism. If you come across your enemy's ox or donkey wandering off, be sure to return it. That's your enemy, right? And you don't want to do a single thing. But if you see that your enemy's ox or donkey is wandering off, be sure to return it. If you see the donkey of someone who hates you falling down under its load, do not leave it there. Be sure to help them with it. So this is the Spirit of God, like spirit behind the laws. It's not that you just do as much like as the other person deserves, but rather care for them, even if they are against you. Do not deny justice to your poor people in the lawsuits. Have nothing to do with a false charge, and do not put an innocent or honest person to death, for I will not acquit the guilty. So here we see, I will not acquit the guilty. That's a legal term, right? Acquittal is a legal term. And why is he utilizing the legal terms? Well, he's talking about statutes, right? However, he is signifying that he himself is the ultimate judge. He has human judges, like he allowed the Moses to share this, teach the people his laws. And Moses apparently, because his father-in-law, Jethro actually suggested he had delegated his responsibilities to minor cases to other judges, right? Now, God is saying, you're going to judge among yourselves as human beings, but ultimately, if you make a mistake or if you do certain things and you might pass that legal ramifications, or you might not be caught, or you might side with the crowd and the verdict is unjust. However, don't forget, you're all gonna die and stand before me, and I'm gonna be the ultimate judge, and I'm going to not acquit the guilty of the one who has killed an innocent person. All these laws, keep them in fear of me, is what he's saying. So, do not accept a bribe, for a bribe blinds those who see and twists the word of the innocent. Do not oppress a foreigner. You yourself know how it feels to be foreigners, because you were foreigners in Egypt. See how many times God emphasizes Sabbath laws. For 6 years you are to sow your fields and harvest the crops, but during the 7th year let the land lie unplowed and unused, right? Then the poor among your people may get food from it. So let your land rest, and by not working on it, not sowing seeds, because when you're sowing seeds, the seeds will have to take nutrition from the ground. So don't do that, but rather, but still, there might be, after you have done complete harvest, there could be some harvest that comes out. Let the poor actually reap. If you read the book of Ruth, she was gathering the sheep, the leftover, the fallen sheeps. And what does Boaz do? He says, go ahead and just leave. He told his servants, hired servants, I guess, don't scold her, but leave some, like, intentionally for her, so that she could actually gather and gather it for her mother-in-law and herself. But during the 7th year, let the land lie unplowed and unused, and the poor among your people may get food from it, and the wild animals may eat what is left. He cares about the animals, doesn't he? Do the same with your vineyard and your olive grove. 6 days do your work, but on the 7th day do not work, so that your ox and your donkey may rest, and so that the slave born in your household and the foreigner living among you may be refreshed. Be careful to do everything I have said to you. Do not invoke the names of other gods. Do not let them be heard on your lips. 3 times a year you are to celebrate a festival to me. Celebrate the festival of unleavened bread. For 7 days eat bread made without yeast, as I commanded you. So get rid of sins, and symbolically don't have any yeast. Do this at the appointed time in the month of Aviv, for in that month you came out of Egypt. So this is referring to Passover, right? No one is to appear before me empty-handed. Wow. So when I was growing up, we had like tons of extended family members, and so we practiced ancestor worship at the time, and even now still it's going on. But so at that time, that is considered the day of all the extended family members gathering, and so not all, only partially those people who were able to make it gathered, and it was easily like 30-40 people at a time, and also starting from December and January were the busiest season, because my mom and dad, because I was the youngest, and I remember my brother and sister, they become teenagers and they didn't want to go with parents, and so I was the youngest one, and I was always taken with them, taken by them, and they would take me just everywhere to greet. Let's go for a greeting. Let's go for go visit, or your great uncle and great aunt. So what do? They prepare beforehand the gifts that they were going to bring to these people. They especially cared much about this great aunt. She acted as the boss oftentimes, and really not many people liked her. Nobody actually welcomed her, but because she was a widow, and she especially gave my mom a hard time. But my dad and my mom, because they cared about the fact that she was a widow, they would bring the best gift for her, and sat there the longest. Although we had difficulty because her conversations with her was not very smooth, and she was kind of a negative person, and it was very difficult to sit through. But we spent a lot of hours at her place, letting her vent, and do whatever she needed to release. And so then when I grew up, one of the words that I heard very often was, don't go visit empty-handed, right? We were supposed to bring something for people, and not to bribe them in any way, not to please them, not to manipulate them. No, just purely giving. But when you visit somebody, you need to go not empty-handed. So this term is really familiar to me, but this is different than that kind of visitation, like visiting other people with gifts. That's not something that God needs. When we visit people, it was more about there is a portion that part of the reason is because we want to honor them, right? But also because we don't want to just take things from them. They usually are very hospitable, right? I think even in the United States, in the past, that people were much more hospitable. And if you go to other parts of the country, you will see there's still hospitality culture remaining. And so people are hospitable, and you don't want to just go sit there and just take from them, right? You want to also contribute to hospitality. You want to kind of minimally respond to hospitality, and therefore that's what they're doing. But that's not the case for God. God doesn't need anything. God is a hospitable God, yes, but He doesn't need anything. He doesn't need to take things from His creation, whether it be sons, whether it be firstborn livestock, or whether it be money. He doesn't need any of that, like grains. He doesn't need any of that. He spoke the world into being. If He needs anything, He can just say, okay, let there be grains, and it'll be uncontainable, in this entire universe. But the reason He's doing this is for our sake. When you come to me, I want to remind you who created you, who gave you everything, who gave you all the blessings. The things that you take for granted. Okay, that the sun rises, the sun sets, it rains. When we sow, we're supposed to reap some harvest. That's given. Don't take it for granted, because I'm the one who gave you that in order to provide for you, and acknowledge me, is what He's saying. When you acknowledge that, then you can trust me more, you can trust me more. And our relationship, because like I don't forget to be your God, but you sometimes forget to be my people. And so when you fulfill your covenant duty, you're reminded of the fact that you are living on this land as my people. When you belong to me, when you are reminded, and when you walk in that reality and awareness, that's beneficial to you. And therefore, don't come empty-handed. Celebrate the festival of harvest with the first fruits of the crops you sow in your field. So we're talking about Thanksgiving, or we don't call it Thanksgiving, but a Feast of Tabernacle, but it's like Thanksgiving, right? Celebrate the festival of harvest with the first fruits of the crops you sow in your field. Celebrate the festival of ingathering at the end of the year, when you gather in your crops from the field. Festival of ingathering. Okay. 3 times a year, all the men are to appear before the sovereign Lord. Do not offer the blood of a sacrifice to me along with anything containing yeast. Any fat, the fat of my festival offerings must not be kept until morning. Bring the best of the first fruits of your soil to the house of the Lord your God. Do not cook a young goat in its mother's milk. See, I'm sending an angel ahead of you to guard you along the way and to bring you to the place I have prepared. Pay attention to him and listen to what he says. I'm sometimes wondering, there are times when in the Old Testament, this is before Christ coming to this earth as incarnate God. There are several times when it says an angel of the Lord, the angel of the Lord, an angel, but they seem to carry more power and authority than usual. I suspect it might be something like Epiphany, Jesus showing up in a visible form. Like he's not a human being, obviously, but in a visible manner. There are times when he appears, right? And angel ahead of you to guard you along the way and to bring you to the place I have prepared. Pay attention to him and listen to what he says. Listen to what he says. This is kind of an odd instruction, because even when he sends Gabriel, when he sends Michael, he doesn't say listen to him and follow what he says. But in this case, whoever the angel was, he says follow, listen to what he says. Do not rebel against him. Do not rebel against him. God never says that about any of the archangels, chief of the angels. And in this case, he says, do not rebel against him. He will not forgive your rebellion, since my name is in him. He will not forgive your rebellion. He has the power to forgive. It sounds awfully like Christ. My name is in him. If you listen carefully to what he says and do all that I say, I will be an enemy to your enemies, and will oppose those who oppose you. So this is a covenant term again. My angel will go ahead of you and bring you into the land of Amorites, Hittites, Perizzites, Canaanites, Hivites, Jebusites, and I will wipe them out. It's an angel of the army, right? But sounds awfully like Christ. And he's going to bring you to the land of Amorites. So you think it's Moses? No, it's the angel that goes with Moses. Well, so Moses in the end was not able to even enter into the promised land, right? He dies in the wilderness. But the angel is with you, and he's going to lead you. Do not bow down before their gods, worship them, or follow their practices. You must demolish them and break their sacred stones to pieces. Like, why is it so concerned about the idols, the carved images? This symbolically, we may not have that in our lives today, or we may, but at least in United States, I can't say that anymore. For a period of time, until some decades ago, we did not have too many carved out images in this country. Now that's changing, but we still had idols in our hearts. Like whatever we have to put first before God, whatever we have to check with before we check with God, that is our idol. And you must demolish them and break the sacred stones to pieces. Like, why do you have to break them? Like, so this act of breaking them, tearing down the idols, refers to, symbolically represents in our hearts, whatever has taken up our hearts, like attention. Like, this is more important than God. This has to come before whatever God says. Like, I have to listen to this. I have to check with this first before I check with God. That could be anything. That could be money. That could be career. That could be the relationship that you cannot let go. It could be, well, if you're a really studious person, it could be study. It could be having to do certain things. It could be your addiction. It could be anything. Oftentimes, idol worshiping is connected to worshiping self. Like a person who is doing self-pity might be worshiping himself or herself. So tear down your idols. Like, what does it look like if you don't have carved out images? I don't have any images that I have carved out that I worship, but I might have certain things. I do have certain things that I tend to put first before I check with God. Like, other things become more important. Whatever that thing is, we need to treat it like tearing down the idols and the altars. Tearing down the idols are altars. Just like tearing them down, we need to really make up our mind. Treat it like the useless stones and put God first. Easier said than done. We need the help of the Holy Spirit, definitely. Unless He comes to help us, to first give us the perspective, and to give us the power to overthrow, right? The idol altars. We're not able to do it on our own. If we were able to do it on our own, in the first place, we probably did not worship it. Worship the Lord your God, and His blessing will be on your food and water. I will take away sickness from among you, and none will miscarry or be barren in your land. I will give you a full lifespan. I will send my terror ahead of you and throw into confusion every nation you encounter. I will make all your enemies turn their backs and run. I will send the hornet ahead of you to drive the Hivites, the Canaanites, Hittites out of your way. But I will not drive them out in a single year, because the land will become desolate and the wild animals too numerous for you. So God says, just walk with me, trust me, and follow me. Remain in my word, and I will drive out. Not that you drive out. So we kind of wondered a couple of sessions ago, really, you said that this is the land flowing with milk and honey, promised land, and the promised land is occupied by so many giants and so many people who are powerful. It doesn't make sense. No. He let them live there for a good reason, for a few reasons. One of them is the animals might spread too much. We're dealing with coyotes these days, right? But without the human beings living in an empty land, the wild animals will just overpopulate. And number two, the land is occupied by other giants, because I want to show you that I'm the Lord who defeats you, who's the warrior God. I'm the Jehovah Tsebaot, and I'm the one who actually goes to strike down the enemies. And you're going to be able to see that and know that I am your Lord. And number 3, if you just go there and nobody's living there, you're not going to cherish the inheritance that I have given you. You'll say, oh, you know what, that was so easy, easily gotten, so this has not very much of value. You have to fight for it in order to value it, right? And to be able to keep it. And so those few reasons. And God is so considerate. Wild animals will overpopulate. So in order to keep them under control, I'm letting all these ites, the various tribes to just continue to live there, and then I'm going to actually drive them out. I'm going to drive them out. You don't have to, you just need to listen, and you might have to engage in battle, but ultimately I'm the one who is fighting. And that name is Jesus Christ. And I will get rid of them one by one. I will not drive them out in a single year. Little by little, I will drive them out before you until you have increased enough to take possession of the land. So see, they came from one person, right? Abraham received the promise. He had Isaac only, at the age of 100. And then Isaac had 2 sons, and then by the second son, 12 tribes came, and then, they increased in number. But still, that number, and while they were living in Egypt, God let them increase even in slavery, and to the degree that the Egyptians were afraid. These people are so numerous and they're becoming powerful because that was God's doing. So in the midst of slavery, in the midst of bondage, God can increase you in a different sense. I'm not talking about just number. And then when you enter into the land, still there will be other tribes, and you might have to engage in battle, and you might have to watch. But part of the reason is because when you enter into the Canaan, after that, you're going to start increasing even further because, they obviously are not in the wilderness. They are settled down, right, with land flowing with milk and honey. Then you're going to increase in number. By the time, I'm going to wait until you increase in number enough to be able to occupy the entire land. God is a strategic God. I will establish your borders from the Red Sea to the Mediterranean Sea, and from the desert to the Euphrates River. I will give into your hands the people who live in the land, and you will drive them out before you. Do not make a covenant with them or with their gods. Do not let them live in your land, or they will cause you to sin against me, because the worship of their gods will certainly be a snare to you. So the laws were given for your sake and for my sake. God does not hide his truth from people. He does not, he hides them from arrogant people and stiff-necked people who are not willing to even listen to him. Like, even if the truth is given to them, they will not listen. If God knows that, then he hides them. And that's part of the reason Jesus spoke in parables. But to even the uneducated people, he made it very plain so that it will not be difficult for people to obey the laws. Well, it will not be hard for them to understand. Obedience comes by the help of the Holy Spirit, and we need to really ask him daily for that. So we left off. We touched on chapters 8, coaching intervention, last time, and so we're going to just take a brief look at that. There are assessment tools for coaching, and one of the best ways to have a successful coaching experience for both the coach and the clients is to provide pre- and post-assessment measures. The following tools can be used to assess client strengths, progress, goal setting, and satisfaction in relation to their desired outcomes, or to clarify their commitment while in the duration of coaching. So number 1 is process evaluation scale. So it has to do with the process, right? So there are at least 3 people who actually developed this scale: Lanero, Lehman, Willenbrock, and Caulfield. And the purpose is to assess coaches' goal attainment, so the client's goal attainment. And it is supposed to rate their current degree of goal achievement on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 is not at all achieved, 10 fully achieved. And average values can then be calculated across all defined goals. And then another scale is goal attainment scale. Once again, Lanero, Lemon, Willenbrock, and Caulfield. Coaching outcome data. So the first one is focused on the coachee or the client. The second one is focusing on the coach himself or herself. The measurement of qualitative goal attainment by incorporating a quantitative measurement via a 5-point Likert scale, where goal attainment is measured from -2 to +2. So -2 is worst expected outcome, and +2 is best expected outcome. So both scales, process evaluation and goal attainment, are susceptible to distortion and bias due to performance rationalizations. Yeah, so this is self-reporting scales, and any of the self-reporting scales, they can be easily distorted depending on how the person who filled out the scale, who filled out the survey or questionnaire, interprets the question or interprets his or her own performance, or depending on the personal perspective, right? But any other self-reporting scales are the same way. So we just need to know that there are strengths and weaknesses to each measure, each scale. And then there's a via inventory of strengths. So Peterson and Seligman actually developed this to assess individual values and strengths. It amplifies the strengths rather than the weaknesses of clients. The connection between strengths views, goal progress, and psychological needs and well-being. So this is a strength focused, and then the 4th scale is the leader competency inventory. It's developed by Kellner, measuring an individual's use of 4 specific dimensions of leadership. And it states the degree to which they have demonstrated or seen various behaviors, and it's beneficial in business and executive coaching to increase the leader's impact and to measure, strengthen, and develop leadership skills. So the Leadership Skills Inventory, LSI, is developed by Carnes and Chauvin, 56-item self-assessment. This is also a self-assessment designed primarily for leaders, encouraging them to assess their own abilities in relation to dimensions of leadership. So self-management skills, interpersonal communication skills, consulting skills for developing groups and organizations, versatility skills. And so it's to respond using 10-point scale, ranging from the skill is new to me to I can perform the skill well, I can teach others too. It's an effective assessment of leadership skills. Another is the satisfaction with life scale. Diener, Emmons, Larson, and Griffin actually came up with this. It's a 5-item scale designed to measure cognitive judgments of life satisfaction. It indicates how much they agree or disagree with each statement of 7-point scale of 1, strongly disagree, to 7, strongly agree. It's a valid and reliable measure of life satisfaction that is suitable for use within a wide range of age groups and applications. So it measures your satisfaction with your life, right? Effective in the detection of change, the tracking of progress in terms of life satisfaction during the course of coaching interventions. So ideally, it's supposed to be that as you make progress with your goal attainment, you probably will be better satisfied, more satisfied with your life. So what are some of the activities in coaching practice? The activities you implement can have a great impact on the effectiveness of your coaching. Following are some of the new ways to assist in goal setting, motivation, and progress tracking in coaching sessions. Number 1, goal visualization. Goal visualization. External representations enhance goal pursuit. Enhances motivation as people approach their goal. The goal set within a coaching context should be challenging yet attainable. So always goals need to be specific and if possible, make it measurable. And also it needs to be attainable. And if you have too many goals and if you have set the standard too high, then you'll be discouraged from the beginning. So make it attainable, challenging enough but attainable. The beneficial effects of visualization exist only when people are close to the goal. So then, we need cheerleaders along the way, but then especially toward the end, we need to be able to actually visualize the goal. Otherwise, a lot of things get in the way, right? Life gets in the way, discouragement or, various circumstances. It aims to increase expectations for success, enhance motivation and emotional involvement. Yeah, so goal visualization, what is the goal? Why are you visualizing that? Why are you imagining yourself having achieved the goal? The reason is because you want to stay motivated, right? So initiate planning and problem-solving actions through the promotion or goal-directed behavior. Is to use imagery to help clients cultivate a mental vision based on positive expectations. The objective needs to be considered carefully, specific, and clear. Imagine their future selves and the steps they could take in the process of achieving their goal. So, imagine your future self, but also what kinds of steps are you going to take as in the process of achieving that goal? Like visual, imagine yourself getting there. So then what would get you there, right? Clients can better consider the strategies they might use, the personal challenges they might face, and the day-to-day changes they can make. Motivational interviewing. Miller and Walnick is a collaborative and self-directed process that emphasizes the coachee as being ultimately responsible for making and sustaining change. So change needs to be made. Definitely, any kind of goal attainment will require change. But then how you're going to sustain that change is also important, right? The application of 4 basic principles: expressing empathy, developing change, and rolling with resistance, supporting self-efficacy. So why don't you reflect on your current behavior? Is it helping? Is it not helping? Is its wider effect on others, and also it's encouraging long-term and intermediate goals. Personal goal progress review. Goals and goal setting within the coaching process is integral to coaching efficiency. Goal setting is most effective in the presence of unambiguous feedback. So make it clear, be empathetic, be kind and respectful, but also you need to make it really unambiguous. Make it kind of clear so that they understand what they're supposed to be changing or what they're supposed to be doing. The personal goal progress review is a self-reflection tool, and it assists clients in monitoring progress toward goal attainment. A few essential questions: what tasks did I complete in the last month that I'm proud of? What are my goals for the next month? What problems have I faced? Have these been resolved? What is still to be achieved? What do I need to do to achieve these goals? Yeah, these are some good questions. On a monthly basis, this is a personal goal progress review. And then reflective journaling. It serves as a permanent record of thoughts and experiences. It provides a means of establishing and maintaining a relationship with the instructors. It serves as a safe outlet for personal concerns and frustrations. It serves as an aid to internal dialogue. So journaling is always helpful. Of course, it'll be more helpful if you are a more reflective person and if you actually like writing. But even if you're not, journal does not have to be just written language, but you can actually draw pictures if you're a more visual, artistic person. You can write poems, like if you're a more poetic person. Whatever helps you to express your thoughts and feelings, but it needs to be kind of like unambiguous too, because this is not a regular reflective journaling, but rather it is supposed to help you toward achieving goals, right? Positively impact both intellectual growth and self-awareness. Reflections can be reviewed and revisited at any time. Clients to chronicle their growth, development, and success. So unless you record your successes, you will not be able to recall. Recording failures and successes are very important because you learn lessons out of them. Like, how did I succeed? How did I overcome the obstacles? How did I resist, the hindrances? How did I fall? How did I not succeed? Like, how did I fail? What needs to be done differently next time? Was that circumstances? Was that your inner struggles? What was the thing that contributed to failure, right? Allowing clients to take a new perspective and observe themselves from a distance. So stepping back and looking at yourself in a big picture perspective and also from an objective perspective is really helpful. And we sometimes I think that's part of the reason Sabbath is so important, because unless we stop being productive and focus on that, we will not be able to reflect on ourselves or set new goals or kind of review. The emotion meter. The emotional intelligence improves one's ability to communicate and more effectively relate with others, solve problems more regularly, right? So emotional intelligence actually helps solving problems, which is very interesting, right? Individuals who have difficulty identifying their emotions may consequently lack the ability to become aware of emotional states that would benefit from regulation. So emotional regulation is really important. We learn to do this at an early age. If our caregiver when we were infants, or was whoever that was, was good at empathizing and allowing that space for you to express your emotions, whether it be crying or frustration, anger, crying out of sadness, or even listening to your needs. Like if you express your needs as an infant has a way of making the noises, making the sound, so that the parents, if you're a parent, you will know, oh, this is when he's hungry. Oh, this is when she is wet. Things like that, right? If the needs were met relatively reasonably, then they can develop trust, and they are likely to learn to regulate their emotions better. Your parents' empathy is pretty important. It can be very hard for parents of an infant, because an infant can be very physically demanding and they don't get to sleep, right? However, if they're patient with you and if they empathize with you, if they meet your needs quickly, then you can regulate your emotions better. Versus if your needs were not met, then emotional regulation can be pretty hard. And because it needs to be developed early on, it'll be hard to deal with this later. But in Christ, everything is possible, right? You might not be perfect. A broken arm, can be healed, but it will not be the same as like intact arm, right? The same thing, if you're damaged early on, it will not be the same as not having gone through that, but still Christ is able to do everything for you. There's no limit as to what he can do for you. So if you know this God, then he can heal you emotionally and help you learn to regulate your emotions. The emotion meter exercise is designed to develop the skills of recognizing and labeling emotions by helping clients track their emotions at regular points. So recognizing your emotions is very important. Recognizing something, that's the beginning of discernment, right? That's the beginning of solving problems. Because emotions, once again, I think we're living in an era where we emphasize psychology a little too much, maybe, but so there needs to be a balance. But certainly, if we are able to recognize our emotions, it's beneficial to us, because the emotions are important indicators that tell you how you're interpreting the situation, right? So it's not the circumstances itself, but your interpretation of the circumstances that becomes your reality, and therefore it affects your emotions. Person A and person B might be in the same circumstances, but say if A looks at it as an opportunity, say it's a negative circumstances, person A actually looks at it as a positive opportunity, although it's not easy, it's not pleasant. But person B actually sees that, wow, why do I have to go through this? Like, this is not right, or like this is too much, or something like that. And focus is just on that and not see the opportunity. Then person A, although the same kind of hardship, will have a better time overcoming the circumstances, versus person B will be bitter just throughout. So then their emotional responses will be very different, right? So then emotions, when you recognize, like, okay, so why am I down today? Why am I angry? It's an indication that there's an injustice or something like that. So you, once again, you need to take time in order to recognize your emotions.
is to connect with other current emotional experience, paying attention to any physical sensations. So one of the things that you can actually utilize, like your body actually is a good thermometer that tells you what you're feeling. And so if you're feeling tension, you know, in your hands, or if you're sweaty, versus if you are relaxed and things like that, that tells you what kind of emotions that you have. So it's a rating of a scale of 1 to 10. Developing emotional self-awareness takes practice. So this does not come overnight, and especially if you were brought up in an environment where you were not allowed to express your emotions, you were discouraged to express certain emotions, right? Then it'll be really hard for you to. It'll be another obstacle that you need to overcome. Like it has to be worked on, right? But still, I want to emphasize the fact that yes, there are many hurdles if you were brought up in certain circumstances, but it still can be practiced, and you can still learn it. And so there are coaching interventions. One is mindfulness. This is different than Buddhist type of thing. Mindfulness is, as it says, being mindful. The efficacy of mindfulness practice when applied to coaching. So the body scan, once again, you know, what is your body telling you about what's going on with you emotionally, even spiritually, right? The body scan has to be associated with perceptual shift in which thoughts and feelings are recognized as events occurring in a broader field of awareness. So be aware, you know, be recognize your thoughts and emotions. Decrease rumination. So like it helps you ruminate less, and increased tendency to describe experiences. And so like verbalizing or writing down your thoughts and feelings could be the next step, but recognizing, but first you have to recognize. And sometimes you start journaling and you're like, okay, so like I'm so distracted, I don't know if I can focus. But as you calm down and, you know, keep writing, sometimes you come to realize your emotions too. So like it comes, you know, the process can be reversed. Like you can start journaling and then it comes to your awareness by paying attention to different parts of the body, by becoming aware of positive and negative mental states. And motivational awareness intervention the purpose is to increase client awareness and motivation. So how motivated are you? A client with understanding is better equipped to adopt the practices required, to notice what motivates them throughout their daily activities, and to consider the factors that influence it. 3 awareness questions. So this is so abstract. What am I supposed to do? Okay, right? What am I doing? Why am I doing this? Where is it taking me? Yeah, so we might be working, right? Simply because it was given to me. But then sometimes we just do it without having the goal in mind, or having the awareness, like this is going to take me somewhere, right? So what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Where is it taking me? And then, you know, answer these questions and record. And then another thing is appreciative inquiry. It's to facilitate client learning processes more effectively. It's to experience the process of transformation through the exploration and discovery of their strengths and positive potential. Developing a foundation for constructing transformative changes in a positive way. It can influence the client's learning experience by deepening their appreciation of their unique contributions and accomplishments, and creating sustainable solutions. So appreciative inquiry is not giving thanks. No. So it's understanding what is your learning process? What is your transformation process? What is your potential and strengths? And what is your unique contributions and accomplishments, right? These are the things to focus on. And then there's giving negative feedback positively, because you don't want to discourage your clients, right? It's not to, once again, it has to be unambiguous, right? Even the negative feedback, you need to give them the negative feedback, but then give it positively, constructive feedback, okay? General advice on approaching negative feedback with coaching clients: focus on the problematic behaviors and actions than the person takes. So you are you are slow, or you are dumb, or you are lazy, or you are emotional. You know, these things will not really help them, because it's just labeling them and, you know, shaming the person. Versus, okay, your behavior, focus on the behaviors. Okay, so when you get frustrated, you know, you do these things, what do you think it's doing for you or against you? Is it helping you to achieve the goal, or not helpful? Be constructive, specific, and non-judgmental. Mutually explore future avenues for improvement. So, like, what do you think, what alternatives do you have? Okay, so you believe that these emotional reactions are not helpful to you, so what do you think is going to help you? How can you actually remind yourself to do this instead of that, right? Strength-based intervention, a significant predictor of change in transformational leadership behavior. It encourages development by building on existing strengths. So building on existing strengths, then attempting to ameliorate weaknesses. I think I talked about this a few courses ago, that focusing on the strength is very important, but then you cannot neglect on your weaknesses, because the weakest point, like the lowest bar of this container with wooden pieces, the lowest part of the wooden piece will be how much you'll be able to perform, right? How much you'll be able to perform, because the water leaks through that weakness. And so very different than what was very popular several years ago, you know, focus on your strengths. Of course you do, but then you cannot neglect on your weakness. Work on your strengths feels better and is far more motivating than working on the weaknesses. But strength-based intervention is one of the approaches. You have to maximize your strength, that is true. So these are all different interventions that you can utilize depending on the need for that season or for that period, right? Or sometimes, you know, your client can be very much have been discouraged. Like, this person is so discouraged, you have to start with the strengths. You sometimes have to do that, right? There are worksheets that you can utilize: goal setting, self-confidence, emotional intelligence, reflective journaling, pre-coaching questionnaires. And so I think you can read the rest of them pretty much on your own. Once again, coaching, it involves mutually, coach and the client mutually setting goals, helping your client to achieve that goal or the goals, and your role is to, as a coach, like how you're gonna help that person maximize the potential to attain those goals within a limited period of time, and by regularly checking, like providing accountability, and then you know, providing resources, like if this person really needs counseling, or if this person really needs physical therapist, or this person.